Something just shifted, and most people didn't even see it coming. Because Shedeur Sanders might be bringing back the number 2, and if that actually happens, this isn't just a jersey change. This is a statement. Now let's be clear, nothing is officially confirmed yet, but the buzz is getting louder. Fans are talking, media is picking it up, and when a conversation like this starts spreading fast, it usually means something bigger is building underneath. Because number 2 isn't just a number. For Shedeur, it's identity. It's what people first recognized him by. Before the spotlight got bigger, before the expectations skyrocketed, that number was already tied to how he moved, how he played, how he carried himself on the field. Then things changed. He stepped back, wore 12, no complaints, no drama, just focus. And that move alone told people everything they needed to know about him. But now, the opportunity is back. And if he really decides to switch again, it won't feel small. It'll feel intentional. Because this isn't just about going back to a number, it's about stepping back into a version of himself that the league hasn't fully seen yet. So the real question is this just a personal decision? Or is Shedeur Sanders quietly sending a message that he's ready to take things to a completely different level? Because if that's the case, this might be the moment everything starts to change. And just like that, everything started moving. Because what began as a small conversation quickly turned into something much bigger, and now it's everywhere. The idea that Shedeur Sanders could bring back the number 2 didn't start as breaking news. It wasn't some official announcement or confirmed report. At first, it was just talk, a question, a what-if floating around between fans and a few media voices. But then something changed. It started spreading. Vast. Now suddenly, it's not just fans discussing it. Analysts are weighing in. Social media is lighting up. And people who usually don't react to small stories are paying attention. And that right there tells you everything. Because random rumors don't move like this. They don't build momentum. They don't keep growing. They don't pull in this much attention from different sides at the same time. But this one did. There's been a lot of buzz online, with some suggesting that this could be more than just a personal choice. Not confirmed, not guaranteed, but enough smoke for people to start asking questions. Because when a story refuses to die down, it usually means there's something behind it. Now again, let's keep it real. Nothing is official. No confirmation, no final decision. This is still speculation, still developing, still in that gray area where anything can happen. But here, what makes it different? It feels real. Not because someone said it once, but because everyone keeps saying it. That's how these moments usually start, quiet at first, then louder, then suddenly it's the only thing people are talking about. And now we're at that stage, where it's no longer just a rumor, it's a conversation. And when a conversation gets this big, it starts to carry weight. Because now fans are thinking about what it means. Media is breaking it down. And people are starting to look at Shedeur differently, not just as a player, but as someone making calculated moves. And that's where things get interesting. Because if this actually happens, if he really brings back that number, then this wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was intentional. But here's the real question. Why now? Because this kind of move doesn't just happen out of nowhere, and what's behind it might be even bigger than the number itself. But here, where the story gets deeper, because this isn't just about a number. For Shedeur Sanders, number 2 isn't random. It's not something he picked just because it looked good on a jersey. That number has been tied to him for a long time, long before the spotlight got this big. It was part of his identity. Fans didn't need to read the back of the jersey to know who they were watching. They saw that number and they already knew. The confidence, the composure, the way he carried himself, it all came with it. That was him. And then he gave it up. No drama, no complaints, no public push to take it back. When the situation changed and someone else had the number, he stepped aside and wore 12 instead. And that moment, it mattered more than people realized. Because in a league where ego can take over fast, that decision showed something different. Discipline, patience, respect. He didn't force anything. He didn't make it about himself. He just focused on playing. But now the situation is different. Now that number 2 is back in the conversation. And suddenly, it feels bigger. Because going back to that number isn't just about preference. It's about returning to something familiar. Something that represents who he was at his core before everything got complicated. There's been a lot of buzz, with some fans saying this could be a sign of confidence. Others think it's about reclaiming identity. Nothing confirmed, of course, but the conversation itself shows how much weight this carries. Because numbers in football, they're not just numbers. They're symbols. They represent eras, moments, versions of a player. And when a player switches back to something tied to their early success, it usually means something. It usually signals a shift. And that's why this feels important. Because if Shedeur Sanders does bring back number 2, people won't just see a jersey change. They'll see a version of him returning. A version that played with freedom, with confidence, with something to prove. And if that version shows up again, then this move won't just be symbolic. It could be the start of something real. But here, where it gets even bigger. Because this number doesn't just belong to him. But this is where everything changes. Because now, we're not just talking about identity anymore. We're talking about legacy. And that's a completely different level. Because when it comes to the number 2, this isn't just about Shedeur Sanders choosing a jersey. It's about stepping into something that was already built long before him. That number carries weight. And a big reason for that is Shedeur Sanders. Long before Shedeur ever touched a football field at this level, that number was already associated with greatness, confidence, dominance, a presence that couldn't be ignored. When Shedeur wore it, it meant something every time he stepped on the field. And that meaning, it never really left. It stayed attached to the number. So now, if Shedeur brings it back, he's not just wearing a jersey, he's stepping into a legacy that people already recognize. A legacy that comes with expectations built into it. And that's where the pressure comes in. Because when fans see that number, they're not just going to see a quarterback. They're going to see history. They're going to see the family name. And whether people admit it or not, they're going to expect something special. There's been a lot of talk around this, with some fans saying this could be a way of honoring that legacy. Others think it's about taking ownership of it, making it his, not just carrying it forward. Nothing confirmed, of course, but the conversation itself shows how much this matters. Because not every player chooses to step into something this heavy. Some avoid it. Some stay away from the pressure. But if Shedeur does this, that's a different mindset. That's someone saying, I'm ready for everything that comes with it. And that's why this move feels bigger than just football. Because legacy isn't just about the past. It's about what you do with it. It's about whether you carry it or elevate it. And if Shedeur Sanders really brings back number 2, then this won't just be about honoring what came before. It'll be about proving he can take it even further. And that's when things start to get real. Because now the expectations aren't just high. They're personal. And what happens next? That's what defines everything. But here, where everything shifts, because if this actually happens, this won't feel like a simple decision. It'll feel like a message. Because when Shedeur Sanders steps onto the field wearing number 2 again, people aren't going to look at it casually. They're not going to say, oh, he just changed his jersey. No, they're going to read into it. And that's exactly why this matters. Because this kind of move doesn't just change how a player looks, it changes how he's perceived. There's already been a lot of buzz around what this could mean. Some fans believe this is Shedeur stepping into full confidence. Others think it's him embracing the spotlight in a way he hasn't before. Nothing confirmed, of course, but the reaction alone shows how powerful this is. Because when a player chooses a number with this much history, this much identity, it sends a signal. It says, I know what comes with this. And more importantly, I'm ready for it. That's what makes this feel different. Because Shedeur didn't rush into this, he didn't demand it from day one, he waited, he adjusted, he wore 12, he handled everything quietly and stayed focused. So if he goes back now, that's intentional. That's calculated. That's someone choosing the moment, not being handed it. And the timing matters. Because now, he's not just another young quarterback trying to prove himself. He's someone who's already faced pressure, already dealt with criticism, already handled expectations. So bringing back number 2 at this point, it feels like a step forward. Like he's saying the early phase is over. Now it's time to take control. And that's when the spotlight changes. Because now every throw, every decision, every game, it all gets looked at differently. The expectations don't just rise, they lock in. People will expect leadership. They'll expect consistency. They'll expect results, not potential results. And that's the risk of making a move like this. But it's also the opportunity. Because if he lives up to it, then this doesn't just become a number change. It becomes a moment. The moment where people stop questioning and start believing. So yeah, on the surface, it might just look like a jersey switch. But underneath, this feels like a statement to the leg. And if that statement is what it looks like, then everything about how people view Shedeur Sanders might be about to change. But here's the part that really makes this different. This isn't just about a number. This is about everything Shedeur Sanders had to go through to even get to this moment. Because when you look at the surface, it's easy to say, oh, he might switch back to number 2. Simple, right? But when you actually understand the journey behind it, that's when it hits different. Because this wasn't a smooth path. This wasn't some easy transition where everything lined up perfectly and he just walked into the spotlight. No, from the very beginning, there was pressure. And not just normal pressure, different pressure. Because being the son of Shedeur Sanders isn't just a title, it's a spotlight that never turns off. Every move gets watched, every decision gets judged, every mistake gets magnified. And for a lot of players, that kind of weight breaks them early. But Shedeur, he grew up in it. He learned how to carry it. He understood what came with it before most players even reach high school. And that's where the foundation started. At Trinity Christian, with his father heavily involved, he wasn't just playing football, he was being prepared for something bigger. The expectations were already high, the standards already set. Winning wasn't optional, discipline wasn't negotiable, and accountability was built into everything. That environment shaped him. It made him calm under pressure. It made him controlled. It made him different. And you saw that carry over when he got to college. At Jackson State, he didn't just show flashes, he dominated. Efficient, composed, consistent. Winning games, leading the team, building a reputation as someone who could handle big moments without getting rattled. And that's where people started to notice. But even then, the conversation wasn't fully in his favor. Because no matter what he did, there were always people saying the same thing. It's because of his name. It's because of his father. It's not really him. And that narrative, it followed him everywhere, even as he kept producing, even as he kept winning, even as he kept proving himself. Then came the next level. And this is where things got real. Because suddenly, the spotlight got even bigger, and so did the criticism. There were rumors, there were stories, there were narratives being pushed about his attitude, his personality, his presence. Some people questioned whether he belonged. Others went further, suggesting he was more hype than substance. And it didn't stop there. He was placed low on the depth chart. Expectations shifted. The tone around him changed. People started writing him off before he even had a real chance to show what he could do. And for most players, that's where things fall apart. That's where frustration takes over. That's where the noise gets too loud. But Shedeur didn't fold. He didn't go public. He didn't crash out. He stayed locked in. Focused, quiet, patient. And that's the part people overlook. Because it's easy to respect success. It's harder to respect restraint. And that's what he showed. While people were doubting him, questioning him, trying to define him before he could define himself, he just kept working. And then, everything started to change. Opportunities opened up. Chances came. And when they did, he delivered. Not just small flashes. Real production. Moments that forced people to stop and look again. Moments that couldn't be ignored. There's been a lot of talk comparing what he's done in certain stretches to elite-level performances, some even mentioning names like Tom Brady or Joe Burrow in terms of rare rookie achievements. Now again, those comparisons are part of the conversation, not confirmed conclusions, but the fact they're even being mentioned. That tells you something. Because players don't get put in those conversations by accident. They get there by forcing people to notice. And that's exactly what he did. He went from being overlooked to being undeniable. And all of that matters when you look at this moment right now. Because switching back to number 2, that's not just going back to where he started. That's stepping forward with everything he's built since then. That's taking the identity he had early on and combining it with the experience, the adversity, the growth he's gone through. And that's what makes it powerful. Because now, it's not just about potential anymore. It's about proof. He's been doubted. He's been criticized. He's been pushed down. And he's already shown he can rise through all of it. So if he brings back that number now, it's not just symbolic. It's earned. And that changes how people see it. Because before, number 2 represented who he was becoming. Now, it represents who he is. And that's a big difference. Because now the confidence is different. The mindset is different. The understanding of the game, the pressure, the expectations, it's all different. He's not stepping into that number as someone trying to prove he belongs. He's stepping into it as someone who already knows. And that's dangerous. Because when a player reaches that point where the doubt no longer controls the narrative, where the pressure no longer feels overwhelming, that's when things start to click at a higher level. That's when performance becomes consistent. That's when leadership becomes natural. That's when the game slows down. And if that version of Shedeur Sanders shows up, then this isn't just about a number change. It's about a shift. A real one. Because now everything lines up. The identity, the legacy, the experience, the confidence, it's all there. And that's why this moment matters more than people think. Because from the outside, it might look like a small decision. But underneath, It represents everything he had to go through to get here. And that's what makes it powerful. Because when someone goes through that kind of journey and still comes out on the other side ready to take on even more, that's not normal. That's not average. That's the kind of mindset that changes things. So yeah, call it a jersey switch if you want. But if you really understand the journey behind it, then you already know. This is something bigger. And what comes next? That's where the story really starts to unfold. So when you really step back and look at everything, the rumors, the timing, the meaning behind the number, it all points to one thing. This isn't small. Because if Shedeur Sanders actually brings back number 2, it won't just be a jersey change. It'll be a moment. And moments like this, they shift perception. They change how players are viewed, how they're talked about, how they're expected to perform. And in this case, the expectations are already building before anything is even confirmed. That's how you know it matters. There's been a lot of buzz around this, with some fans saying this is Shedeur stepping fully into his identity again. Others believe it's deeper, that it's tied to legacy, to confidence, to everything he's gone through leading up to this point. Nothing official, of course, but the conversation itself is telling. Because nobody reacts this strongly to something that doesn't mean anything. And right now, people are reacting because they understand what number 2 represents. Not just to him, but to the history behind it, the expectations attached to it, and the message it sends when someone chooses to wear it again. And that message feels clear. This isn't about going backward. It's about stepping forward. Because now, he's not the same player he was when he first wore it. Now he's been tested. He's faced criticism. He's handled pressure. He's proven he can rise through doubt instead of folding under it. And that changes everything. Because if he brings that version of himself into this moment, then number 2 doesn't just represent potential anymore. It represents arrival. And that's when things get dangerous. Because now, every game becomes bigger. Every performance carries more weight. Every moment gets watched differently. And that's exactly what comes with making a move like this. So the real question isn't whether he can bring the number back. The question is, what happens if he does and lives up to everything that comes with it? Because if that happens, then this won't just be remembered as a jersey switch. It'll be remembered as the moment everything changed. And if you're not paying attention now, you might miss it when it happens.